All right, it's been 1 minute past, so I guess we are ready to start. And let's start with just simple introduction. So you're here today for the session called 5 Tips to Teaching Exams, delivered by myself. My name is Anna, and I am a graduate of University of Cambridge. I did my master's there. I'm also a Delta certified teacher, and currently I live and work in Kazakhstan in Pavlodar. Hello, Ekaterina, welcome. And at first, I'd like us to really quickly get to know each other. So, as you can see from this slide, I'm an EFL teacher. I teach English as a foreign language. I hold the position of the director of studies at the school called Linguagrad. I teach all levels and all ages, but I do specialize in exams and academic ESP courses, tailored courses, and basically the more weird, the more difficult the course is, the more chances are that I will teach it. If you could please use the same stems, I teach, and I specialize, and tell me who you are, what do you teach, and what do you specialize in, that would help me to tune my presentation today and to make sure that I address some of your needs. Because I guess people here teach different examinations, and that'd be nice to know which exams do you guys teach. So if you could just take a minute and introduce yourselves, I would gladly use this information to help you out with the kind of exam course that you're teaching. Well, a little bit more about myself. I've been teaching English for about 10 years now, and all these 10 years I've been specializing in exams. At first I wasn't so lucky. I did not feel qualified enough to teach exams, but I didn't have much choice because my boss, the school I worked for, decided that with my high IELTS score and with my experience working and traveling abroad, I was convincing enough for the students. Therefore, I just delved in and started teaching right away. And basically, I learned as I taught. And through several years of teaching and constantly improving my qualifications, improving my methods of teaching, learning about new approaches, trying them out in classes, I came up with some of the tips that I could share now with you, so that improve your teaching. Hello, Kate. So we have Kate who teaches Cambridge exams. Wonderful. Others are not so active, so I'm going to wait for a couple more minutes to get maybe a couple more responses, but feel free to add your responses as we go through our presentation today. Do I speak loud enough? It looks like everything is working just fine. And I'm just going to move ahead with the presentation because some of you might be just busy doing something else and streaming the presentation. And if you have a minute later on, please leave a message. Tell me what levels you teach. Well, Shoira here first from Sairam. Hi, Shoira. Nice to see you here. Irina teaches all levels, and she specializes in new approaches in teaching. Wonderful. And she teaches also Cambridge exams and IELTS exam. Wonderful. Great. I teach IELTS a lot. I have like 3 or 4 groups right now, and that's not counting individual students. Right, so let's go to the tips that I have prepared for you. So my tip number 1 is to get certified. What I mean by this is that, in my experience, students nowadays are very spoiled, and many of them, when they learn English as a foreign language, already have come in contact with either native speakers or have been in a native environment, and they're very demanding towards their teachers. So however old you are and however experienced you are, one thing that definitely proves and sounds convincing for your students is that you're certified in what you're doing. Basically, why would you do that? This is only to satisfy the learner's expectations. As far as I understand, most of you here today, all of us here today, are non-native English speakers. And because we are non-native English speakers, the expectations of us are always really high. Usually the exam courses are more expensive than the regular courses of English. So when students start an exam course and they are willing to pay more for it, they're also willing to get a teacher who is not a regular teacher, who is more qualified than everybody else. And I constantly get this question, have you taken the exam? And if you say, yes, you have, yes, I have, they always ask, and what's your score? And what's your level of English? Students nowadays are really up to date with the CEFR scale, and they can, at my school, in the environment where I teach, the students who start examination courses, they're really demanding. They always request teachers with the highest levels, teachers that can prove their qualifications. And if your answer to the first question is no, quite often you lose the student who is ready and motivated and has the financial resources to pay. But as soon as they feel that you are not meeting their needs and you're not meeting their expectations in terms of qualification, they are more likely to say no and go look for another teacher. So there are several options for us as teachers, what to do and how to get qualified. Well, of course, the main qualification that you and I, that we all have, is our diploma of higher education. And if you're lucky enough and it's from a country where English is a native language, then I believe that your diploma would be convincing enough. If you're not, if you studied in Russia, in Kazakhstan, in any of the CIS countries, and which, however good universities are, but they do not have English as an L1 language, then it really makes sense to get certified through international English exams or professional development courses. So the options here would be to take one of the Cambridge Skills exams, the Cambridge Advanced English Test or Proficiency English Test, or the IELTS, and get the score above 8, I guess above 7.5, which would prove that you have a level of C2, good enough to teach for certain levels. Or ideally, that would be taking a professional development course. And by that, I mean webinars, courses, special MOOCs, massive open online courses. And I'm going to give you a couple of tips what they can be in a minute. Or maybe get a CELTA certification, or Delta, or international TESOL. Basically, any sort of document and course that proves that your level of English is higher than those teachers who teach regular courses of English. As soon as you are certified, you will be more employable, more kind of attractive for employers, as well as students who are willing to get you as their tutor. So I'd like to give you some specific suggestions. Well, they could be maybe these particular suggestions are useful for those who teach IELTS. I teach IELTS a lot, and IELTS is a really, really popular exam here in Kazakhstan. So all the students I get always ask me, have you taken the exam? When was the last time you took it? And I don't even know how to look in their eyes and say, no, I haven't, because I would definitely put me very low in their eyes. And yes, I took the exam many times, several times, even though I don't need to anymore. My professional qualifications are way higher than those that required in IELTS. I have my master's from an English-speaking countries. Still, it sounds really convincing for the student when you tell them, yes, I took the test, yes, I have the 8.5, and yes, I'm able to teach you to get the level of 6 or 7 or whatever you want. The couple but specific suggestions I have for you is a free course called Inside IELTS. You can take it for free on futurelearn.com. I'm going to send you the direct link just in a minute because I have all of them open. That would be the direct link here in the chat. I'll post it. The course is free and opens like once in every few months. If you want to get an official certificate from FutureLearn, then you could just get it for additional payment. But to be honest, I don't know how much it is now. Or if for your students it's just enough to know that you took a special preparation course, then that would be good enough. Another course is offered by Cambridge English website. It's called How to Teach IELTS. I personally took the course a couple of years ago, and I'm going to give you a direct link to this. And to be honest, I did not, like, as an experienced teacher, as a teacher who has been doing that for many years, I did not find the course particularly helpful or eye-opening or groundbreaking or anything like that. The course is pretty basic, and I would advise this course only to those students who have just started to teach exams. Additionally, they do have on Cambridge English website, they have professional development courses for those who teach CAE exams, CPE, and FCE. So if you browse through their options, I'm sure you can find the course which would suit your needs. And another course I can just skip and not to promote myself is the course designed by myself. After completing Delta, part of my development and post-course action was to develop a course, and it is all resulted in developing a course, a 30-hour professional development course for teachers who pursue the aim of becoming IELTS tutors. This is a 30-hour practical course which is delivered either online or in person. If you follow the link, you'll be able to find some pictures and more detailed course descriptions. Well, if you teach other courses rather than IELTS, then my particular suggestions for you would be to start brushing up on your academic English. If you have studied in an English-speaking country, then your academic English would be possibly of the level necessary to teach the international exams. But if you haven't, then it would be a good idea to brush up a little bit on your academic English. The thing is that general working proficiency of any language can be developed between 3 and 5 years. But to develop academic proficiency, it takes from 5 to 7 up to 10 years to develop academic proficiency in a certain language. Therefore, if you did not have a chance to study in an English-speaking country, then you might need additional instruction on that. And again, I have particular suggestions for that. That would be the Coursera open website, available for everybody, any place you are. On this platform, I'm gonna give you the direct link. There are multiple courses delivered by a number of well-known universities all over the world, and these courses are really helpful, and most of them are free of charge. If you want to get a specialization, then some of them will be at certain cost, but again, I wouldn't know the cost exactly. You could just follow the link and find out yourselves what course would suit your needs. Another suggestion would be to follow some publishers' webinars. Every big publisher now delivers webinars which are scheduled monthly, and I'm speaking about Oxford, Cambridge, Macmillan publishers, and one of my favorites, Engage Learning. That's why my direct link is just this Engage Learning website, because they offer lots of topics connected to academic English, academic studies, exam teaching, and you might benefit from these webinars in a way that you would learn from more experienced professionals who have been teaching these exams in the academic environment for years, and they would share their tips and their suggestions. Another suggestion would be webinars and MOOCs by different organizations. My particular suggestion is using American English teacher website, because they are really rich on webinars and on MOOCs specifically. MOOC is massive open online seminar, which is available to everybody worldwide. I'm going to give you a link just in a second. Here it is. And if you browse this website, you will find what webinars, what MOOCs they have had so far and which MOOCs they're delivering right now. And I'm not lying when I'm saying that I'm a regular attendant of these MOOCs and courses. Even now, at the moment, I'm doing a course on content-based instruction. I'm now currently on module 3 of the course, and it's been really interesting. So if you are looking for opportunities to improve your English, especially the academic one, that would be definitely a challenge to take. My second tip for you, so just to revise really quickly, my first tip for teaching exams is to get certified. And by getting certified, I mean getting either a certificate proving your high level of English at the level of C2, or a high level of professional qualification. That would be again one of the Cambridge professional exams for teachers, or TEFL. And finally, to brush up on your academic English skills. My next second tip, number 2, would be to avoid negative backwash, or washback, it's also called. Basically, teachers who teach different international tests often can be blamed for teaching solely for the test. This means constantly doing the sample papers, constantly going over the past papers and doing the tests in class, and then only working on the mistakes backwards. This is called negative backwash, and this is something that needs to be avoided if you want to be a valued teacher. Well, any course that you teach, you need to teach it and not test. The test is the final result that the students would take. And that means that we shouldn't be constantly testing students in class. What I mean by that is that you need to remember that learners are active participants of your classroom, of the learning process. They're not just passive recipients. And what we need to be doing is also raising the awareness about the exam itself. We need to train them in rubrics. And by rubrics, I mean instructions to the test. Any kind of test has particular instructions that students need to be highly aware of, because during the test, when they actually on the test day, they shouldn't worry about, did I understand the instructions right? They should only worry about showing their maximum level of English. And this is our responsibility to teach and train the rubrics and develop their sum skills and exam strategy in the class. Also, that would include training your students under timed conditions. This could be different, teaching them time-saving strategies, teaching constantly using timers in class, training students to take mock tests. Mock tests are simulation exams. So whatever exam you're preparing your students for, it's a great idea to have a mock exam for them. IELTS is not the only exam I teach. I also teach SAT. I currently have an SAT group teaching SAT reasoning skills. I teach special examination for Kazakhstani University called Thinking Skills exam. And it's also a high-level preparation exam. And for each of these exams, I train my students to take a mock test. So on the day of the real test, They're already prepared. They know what to wear, how to breathe, where to look, where they can save time. One of the time-saving strategies could be to train them into rubrics so much that on the day of the exam, they don't even need to read the instructions. They can just directly go to the actual task and perform the task with their best ability. So my tip number 2 would be teach, not test. In the classroom, you need to be teacher rather than testing. Don't forget that you are the teacher. And a common thing would be for testing would be doing reading tests and listening tests in class. Well, I have 2 don'ts for you. The first one concerns reading. So as far as reading tests is concerned, I would suggest not to do reading tests like a full reading paper in class and then grade it in class and only work on the mistakes that students have made. Instead, I would suggest to focus on sub-skills that are involved in reading. This is teaching students to skim the text, to get general idea, to scan for specific information, teaching them some fast reading techniques, teaching them some diagonal reading techniques, teaching them how to select keywords, not just telling them select the keywords, but actually teaching what words can be the keywords, what parts of speech can act as keywords in most of the exams, teaching them how to identify attitude of the author. These things need to constitute your reading lessons, and only then you could actually go to a reading test paper and maybe do it in class, but I would only suggest to do it in a mock test. The second thing I often hear from inexperienced exam teachers, whenever the students ask for help with listening, they tell you just have to listen a lot. The more you listen, the better you become. Well, this, in my view, is wrong. This is really wrong, and I'm not the only person in the world who thinks that. If you go to the theory of listening, the authors who elaborated on how listening to a foreign language works, you would learn that listening is not such a straightforward process. It's a very highly cognitive process, and the rule of doing it more is not going to help because it's not a muscle that you train. Instead, you need to teach students to involve certain soft skills. This is taking notes effectively while listening, predicting from the context, using the features of connected speech, teaching them that the connected speech aspects may sound the same but look different in writing, teaching them some pause and intonation techniques and how this pause and intonation can indicate the structure of the exam. So if these elements are built into your course, then you're going to be a teacher who is really, really popular among students. So one more thing to add to my tip number 2, by teach not test, is remember that you are the teacher. So do go back to just the basics. You need to go back to methodology and remember that you teach the language first of all, and then you teach how to use this language effectively in order to pass the test. So the teaching the language should not be just eliminated from the course, and therefore I always suggest teachers, I train my colleagues to do that, to develop professionally. You need to constantly develop professionally. This is the picture that you see on the slide. This is a picture of our library, and all 3 pages are just the pages mostly for exam preparation, personal development, courses for teachers, the how to teach different books are available for teachers, the language analysis books are available, CELTA, Delta course materials are available for teachers, and whenever they struggle with how to teach a certain aspect, the first thing I always suggest is not do a test a million times, but to go back to basics and try to find out why your student cannot understand the listening portion of the exam. Maybe they have a problem with connected speech. Maybe they do not predict. Maybe they do something else. So there is one book that I always suggest is Listening in the Language Classroom by John Field. That would be in the language classroom. I'm gonna put it here for your future lesson. It's by John Field. John Field was my my diploma supervisor at Cambridge University. I know him personally, and his book and my acquaintance with him has changed tremendously how I approach my teaching and how I approach teaching and listening in particular. To move on to my next tip, I'd like to give you tip number 3, and that would be balance the language and skills work. Usually, all the exams, regardless of what exam you teach, be it IELTS, TOEFL, Cambridge exams, FCE that ladies here teach, all of these exams nowadays are skills-based. But so this is basically what's on the surface. That's what all the students know, that they're going to be tested on reading, writing, listening, and speaking. But what they don't know is that the systems of language, and by systems I mean grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, and functions are tested within the skills. Therefore, you shouldn't be just focusing on doing the 4 reading, writing, listening, and speaking things, but also build in some remedial language work. By remedial, I mean correcting language work. So obviously, you students who attempt to take an exam course already have the general knowledge of English, and if you approach it from the point of view, okay, guys, today we're going to revise present simple, most of them are going to be negative. They're going to have a negative attitude to a lesson because they would feel like, oh, God, I learned it like 5 years ago, and you're telling me about present simple again. Instead, I would be just building in elements as we go, as we work on skills. So for instance, working on writing and noticing that students constantly miss the third person as ending, I would then kind of gradually build in a couple of activities to focus on subject and verb agreement without even announcing that this is the present simple activity. And these ways your students will be more appreciative of what you're doing, and they would feel that you're still working on the exam skill. Another thing would be you need to revise systems gradually, and you need to integrate this revision into the practice tests. Therefore, I always suggest to use some modern methodology. Earlier, who was saying that? Irina from Irina was saying that she specializes in new approaches in teaching, so I guess she would support me on that. Because the approaches listed here are quite modern nowadays, contemporary, and really well advertised. So I would definitely advise to use some guided discovery approach to enforce some of the grammar skills. I would definitely use the task-based learning for teaching speaking skills, because this would allow you to see the level that the student can speak at the beginning of a lesson, then provide some remedial work, provide some enhancement, some extra work, some enforcement work, and then see the second result. And usually the second result is better than the first one, and if the students are able to see that they were able to achieve that through one lesson, they're again going to be really appreciative and more motivated to continue the exam preparation course. I would advise to get a hand of lexical approach, because if your students are aiming to get higher scores, it's not just enough to know many words, it's also a requirement nowadays to get some collocational competence. And collocational competence can only be achieved by employing, by either living in a native, in an English-speaking country for years, which is obviously not available to most of our students, or by having a teacher who is aware of such a thing as a lexical approach and is ready to implement the elements of lexical approach in class in order to help students to develop their collocational competence. And the final advice that I would give would be just stay tuned on what's going on in the ELT world. Stay tuned and try out the new approaches and see what works in your exam classroom. Maybe you could just contact Irina, who specializes in new approaches in teaching. Earlier, as far as I know, there was a webinar here, also provided by Magellan. Thank you so much for inviting me, by the way, on dogme approach in teaching. So I would just go ahead and join 1 or 2 communities of practice and try to attend as many seminars and webinars as possible, conferences of different kinds and so on, to stay tuned, to stay up to date, and to be to demonstrate myself as a more qualified teacher, as a capable teacher for teaching the exams. So that would be definitely my tip number 3 for all students and teachers and teacher students, younger and more experienced ones. So up to now, we have been through 3 tips, which are get certified. Number 2, try to teach and not test in class. And number 3, try to balance language and skills work in class. My tip number 4 will be to promote autonomy. Basically, students who are attempting to take international examinations are already grown up enough in their mindset to understand and to take the responsibility for their own learning. The more responsibility the learners take with their own learning, the more progress they're going to make. So from my day 1 of any language course, I promote autonomy in my classes. I motivate my students as much as possible to use extra resources outside of class to develop their skills. The exam preparation should not just be my 3 90-minute lessons a week. They should be more than that. And I always, from lesson 1, let them know that attending my classes is not going to magically make them C2 level speakers of English. There is no magic involved. I don't have any kind of wound that I can use to put all the knowledge inside your head. And you need to work just also hard enough to get the knowledge. I'm going to be offering you the knowledge, and it's up to you to practice it in and outside of class. But of course, speaking to students in a motivational way is never enough, and you need to kind of constantly remind them about the challenge that they have taken and their responsibility for learning. So what I do, I set up a group email to assign tasks. That's one thing I do, especially with adult learners who work and often have email accounts available at work, but they're not willing to use their mobile phones. So what I do, I just set up a group email, and whenever I assign tasks, they get this notification, their email, reminding them that they have homework to do, they have extra reading to do, and that I don't just do this every time after class. I try to do it a couple of extra times per week, at least once a week, additionally, to just remind them that in addition to their homework, these are the nice websites that they can use or something. Another thing you can do, which is maybe a quicker way, is to set up a group in WhatsApp or Telegram and use this group to share the materials, to motivate the learners to do something, to assign homework. Recently, earlier, I was a bigger fan of group emailing, but as soon as all these quick messaging systems came to life and became easily available, I gradually switched onto them, and now all my groups that I teach, they always have a group WhatsApp account or Telegram account, up to them, whichever one they'd like to use, and I use them the accounts to assign homework, to send messages, to share some materials, to maybe send them a link of a nice article that I read. to leave voice messages. Actually, I have like a completely different workshop on how to use mobile phone in class, outside of class, to promote the autonomy, and maybe you can attend it someday. So actually now with all this social media easily available, there's just so many opportunities that you can use to promote autonomy. Of course, it has some downsides. It means that you will need to work outside of your regular hours. And as far as I know, such work is not usually paid by your employers. But this is like a kind of I think that, again, stays up to you. Do you want to be a regular teacher who is stuck at teaching to be or not to be, to A1, A2 level, constantly repeating the same course books? Or do you want to be a more qualified and more wanted teacher who specializes in some certain high-stake exams? Well, early in my career, I've decided that I want to be a specialist in a particular area, and I did not regret it for a day. I honestly can say that exam courses pay off more. They also pay off not only financially, but they pay off in terms of my personal development. Because I teach really difficult high-stake courses, I'm always enrolled on extra courses for professional development, and I stay tuned with everything that's going on in the exam world, in the ELT world, and that makes me very attractive for students. I always have a job, like really, like there's never a thing such as a dead month. Like many in private schools, many specialists complain that they don't have work over summer. Those who teach exams have work all year round, really, honestly. Never have a problem with not having enough students. There are always too many students that I share with my colleagues. And one more thing, how you can promote autonomy is using different apps. There's just so many free and easily available apps nowadays that students can use in their own time outside of class. But there is one suggestion that I have. Before you tell your students to do something with an app, I would first demonstrate a demo in class, demonstrate how to use a certain thing in class, and then suggest and motivate them to use some things outside of class. Like some of the things that I use would be, I use Padlet a lot to assign reading homework. That's definitely true. And where I store reference materials. So for instance, that's where I store the material for, again, for all my writing lessons. And there sometimes all my courses, exam courses, are rolling on courses, and sometimes students enroll in the middle of the course, and that could be also a time-saving strategy for me and for the student, when I just tell them, oh, here's the link to the materials that we have used early in class. Take a look at them to stay tuned with what's going on in class today. Another thing is Kahoot, but I'm sure that most of you know how to use it, because if you are attending the webinar by Maglan, then definitely you have attended like one of the events where they constantly use this nice application. So I'm not going to elaborate on that. One more thing that I use a lot is Quizlet, which is also easily available and free of charge for students and for teachers. I use it to practice systems, particularly. That this is something that usually assigned as homework. In class, we mostly focus on skills, and outside of class, I provide some remedial work. And the next lesson, I'm able to see if the student has done any extra practice, because their language would improve if they have. Another thing that I use is Google Forms to conduct different needs analysis, to collect feedback, to again, to collect some writing tasks, because you can work in Google Documents together with your student. And I'm lucky enough that some of my students already are very computer literate and know how to use all these things. But some of my students who are adults level, who are adult students and mid-career professionals, they are usually way too busy to do the writing tasks like at their work because they're busy with families. So I can kind of go out of my way to come up with different ways to motivate them to study. And whenever you start introducing new technological things for them, many of them become more interested in doing the tasks. I have one student who is like a really top level manager, always on business trips, who has hardly time to even, I don't know, sleep, but somehow manages to attend 2 or 3 IELTS lessons a week. Sometimes online, sometimes in person, and this person is constantly motivated by technology. So every time I suggest a new technological thing, she tries it on the train, on a plane, and constantly reports back what she liked, what she didn't, and definitely works and helps them to learn. And the final thing I would say, suggestion is to use Google Classroom. I put a question mark over there because up to a certain point I wasn't sure if it's an effective way to use this thing. But then after like trying this out several times with more than one group, I came to a conclusion that yeah, it's definitely worth trying. And on the next slide you can just see some of the screenshots of my work, the work that I do to promote autonomy of my students. In the upper left corner there is a screenshot of a group email. Then below it there is a Padlet page where we practice different graphs description tasks, and in the right corner, kind of in the back, there is a screenshot of one of the Google Classrooms that I use to help my students to brush up on some of the skills. It's also like using the online platform where you can set up tasks for students is also helpful if you teach a multi-level class. The majority of classes that I teach are multi-level, and it's difficult to adapt to different levels, but I manage. And obviously at the end of the lesson I see that for some students the language work was more than enough and they got the point, but there would be usually 1 or 2 students who are not who haven't understood the material as well as they should have, and they maybe need some extra grammar practice to, for instance, to improve their writing skills to describe a process diagram. They understand how to describe the diagram, but they lack the passive voice skills. So I would use my Google Classroom to assign some extra tasks for those students who need them. And those who don't need can just ignore the task and go to something more challenging for them. So definitely using such things as technology can promote autonomy, promote self-direction of your learners. So that was my tip number 4. And my final tip is make it fun. Like, make it fun, however weird that sounds, it's possible, believe me, that any exam preparation class can be fun. On the screen right now, you see a picture of just my library where I keep all kinds of board games that we use in class. I don't know, different sound effect things and so on. You can even read some of the titles. And I'm not sure if the system would allow me, but I've uploaded some of the videos and pictures. And I have to say that all right. Okay. Some of you are leaving, and that's totally fine. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm not sure. Maybe it will be available in the recording. Do reach out if you have to leave early, and I can send you the slides with all the links, hyperlinks available. That's not a problem. And so, as I was saying, don't forget that you're a teacher, and you're teaching, first of all, the language. Language teaching can be made fun, and I'm actually using this to my advantage. I'm not sure if you can see the pictures that I'm showing to you right now. And these are the pictures that, what day is it today? Today's Thursday. So I only uploaded like a couple of pictures from this week. All these people that you see they are taking a very difficult exam, SAT, and you see they don't look so tired. They look like they're having fun because the teaching is made fun. If the teaching is fun, the learning is fun, and the learning is more easy. This is another group of IELTS students who are trying to master the graphs, and instead of drawing the graphs, they're just building the graphs with their buddies. Again, it's a lot of fun, and they don't look so exhausted, even though it was a Saturday night extra lesson. They don't look like it was a Saturday night. I constantly use all kinds of board games in my class. The board game doesn't have to be specifically designed for your exam. I'm sure that an experienced teacher can always adapt the resource to suit his or her need. This is an example of a board game actually taken from the American English website that I have advised earlier. We are lucky enough that at my school we have the printed original versions of the game, because we also work with the US Embassy and they presented it to us. But earlier, before I got the full-size board game, I was just using the printouts of the same game, and it actually very, very motivating in one-to-one classes. I never start a class without a fun activity to motivate my student, because I do appreciate the time that they spend. Even if they attend my class once a week, it's still a lot of time for them to, it means that for this 1 hour, they cancel all their other duties, all their other responsibilities. Many of my students actually cancel their jobs to come to class. And I try to make it as fun and as relaxing for them as possible, but at the same time, it has to be challenging enough. So I'm not sure if the videos would be available. I don't think they are, unfortunately. Yeah, unfortunately the videos didn't load, but let's do like that. I will just let you, I will just give you our Instagram account, and it's Linguagrad PVL. And if you use Instagram, then we have a special kind of rubrics, what's it called, a storyline thing called IELTS. On Instagram, and this is where I save all the fun activities that we do in classes, and not only IELTS classes, they're actually different classes, SAT and thinking skills, and some of the Cambridge exams, CAE Advanced English, Cambridge Advanced English test. If you go like flip through the story of these pictures, you will find lots of interesting activities, and feel free to adapt them for your class. I really don't mind, even though many of them were just designed by myself personally. Another thing that I'd suggest is if you're teaching groups, then do build in elements of competition. Students enjoy competition, and they need to see that in some things they're better than others, or they're not as good as they thought they were. So I always do that through Kahoot, through Quizlet, through just typical board race, or I don't know, better writing, quicker grading, and other things. Don't forget it's a class, it's a regular class, therefore do involve pair and group work so that students benefit from collaboration and benefit from learning from their peers. Again, I said earlier, do employ some board games, and don't forget about teaching the time-saving strategies. And one way you can do this is using different kind of timers. I hope that I would be able to show my screen, but unfortunately I'm not. And since I'm not, I can't really show you some of the things that we use, but there's more than one timer available in my class. I have like a little sandwich. I have a quick timer thing that you can have, a basic mobile phone timer, or a big like a kind of screen timer. There is actually a really nice website called stopwatch.com, I believe. Stopwatch, yeah, like an online timer, for instance, that I can share with you. which can have like all kinds of sound effects built in, indicating that there is little time left, not enough time left, it's about time to finish up the task. So all these things, all these elements gradually building into your course make your course look fun, be fun, and a lot more interesting and challenging enough for students. And that's about everything I wanted to share with you. So just to sum up everything that was said today, my 5 tips are, number 1, get certified, get higher level of your academic English and professional skills. Tip number 2, remember that you're a teacher. You need to teach the material, not test it. Constant testing doesn't help. Elements of tests should be only built through mock tests and rubrics training. My 3rd tip was to try to balance language and systems, language skills and systems. Skills are things that our students know they're tested on. This is reading, writing, listening, speaking. And systems are things that are, which help us to produce the skills. This is pronunciation, vocabulary, grammar, and functions. So these elements should be built into your course as a remedial kind of work. The 4th tip was to promote autonomy. You need to let your students know that you don't have a magic wand, and exam preparation is really high effort giving activity, not only taken, they need to be given a lot in order to learn. So technology can be of help for that. And my final tip is try to make it fun, building in elements of fun, make you a fun teacher. If the students, if you yourself as a fun teacher, they're more willing to be in your course, and they will feel personal responsibility for scoring high in order to not to let you down. This is a common thing that I get from my students. If my students get a score that they're not satisfied with, mostly what they say to me is that they tell me, Anna, I'm so ashamed that I did not meet your expectations, and I never blame you, I blame only myself for not doing the 100%. And constantly students say that, and usually that doesn't happen very often, that they fail the test, and by failure I mean scoring like a little lower than you actually expect of them. But most of the time, even if they score a little lower, they know that this is the lower thing that they were supposed to get, and they retake the test, and second time they score higher than was expected of them. So that is why doing the mock tests is definitely a thing for like to be built in any exam course, regardless of the kind of course you teach. If you are interested in learning more about how I personally teach and teachers at my school work, then feel free to sign up to our Instagram account or follow our website, or just contact me directly at my email address and request this PowerPoint or any other materials that you'd like to request. Do you have any questions, issues, concerns, something that you'd like to discuss before we say goodbye? I see that we are now down on participants. Some participants have left, but we still have some. Shara, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. Thank you for your kind words. To be honest, I do not know if this webinar is recorded. So if it is recorded, then I'm sure that the owners of the webinar will share the link for download. And if it's not, you always know where to find me. Feel free to contact me in person to get any of the links, any of the material that I have shared with you. All right, then I'll see myself off because I have more classes to teach today. And I wish you all a very good day. Good luck in your teaching and good luck in your exam preparation. I really wish you all the best, and belated congratulations on the 8th of March, the Women's Day. Let the spring be in your hearts, and let the exam period go by with less stress. So have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you some other time.